sense in that respect. So I'm going to move into the life aspect here. When I'm finished up, we can get into sort of broad discussion across all of this, but it's life that really holds all the real exciting potentials. Because life is not hard to maintain on this planet. If you've ever tried to keep a couple of square meters of soil from growing in the summer, you'll know that you've got to work at it steadily. It's abundant. And human beings are able to eat almost anything. We can live in the Arctic, we can live in the deserts, we can live in the rainforest, we can live anywhere. So if what we want is life, that's not that difficult. There was an experiment done in the 1600s by a fellow named Jean-Baptiste von Helmont in what's now the Netherlands. Science was re-emerging from the Middle Ages and people were studying all sorts of things, and he was studying life. It came to be called biology. And he did an experiment where he took a branch from a willow tree that weighed 5 pounds. And he took a whole bunch of soil and dried it bone dry and put exactly 200 pounds in a great big pot, pushed the branch down, packed the soil, covered it with perforated metal so the air could circulate, the dust wouldn't settle on the soil, and he watered it with rainwater or distilled water, nothing but pure water, for 5 years. The branch put down roots and it grew into a bush. And after 5 years, he took the plant and separated the soil and weighed the plant and found that it had grown to 169 pounds. And then he dried the soil bone dry again and weighed it and found that it had lost less than 2 ounces. So it was 164 pounds of growth from less than 2 ounces of soil. And the rest was carbon from the air, oxygen and hydrogen from air and water. Most of life is a gas. I mean that in 2 ways. I've been noting that kids in high school haven't got a clue what I mean when I make that pun. I have to explain it, but I'm going to explain it anyways. Because one aspect is that the substance that your body is made of is mostly things that float freely in the atmosphere almost everywhere on Earth. And the other is that we're facing some very serious problems, and a large part of the solution is to enjoy living. Our ability to gain satisfaction from a friendship, from learning things, from playing sports, making music, serving, helping people, worship, art, in any of the things that we do with life, appreciating the world around us, things that we do with life speak to us as human beings. They truly satisfy us. That's why they call us human beings. We're not human havings. It takes $450 billion a year in advertising to convince people that they need stuff to be happy. And it takes that much money because it's not true. You know, you can get a thrill by purchasing something, but it's going to fade, and you're going to want to get something else and get another thrill. People keep going back for another hit, another hit, another hit. Pretty soon they find out they're in debt over their heads, working at things they hate. It's not really fun. It's not a good model. But if you make a good friend, or you find some aspect of your life that really you enjoy, you want to develop a skill or a talent or something or other, that all you need is quality food, like good healthy food, a comfortable shelter, and it's a thrill to get up in the morning and to be able to pursue that activity. And if we can find satisfaction in ourselves, then our impacts on the planet will be minimal. We don't need much, and most of what we need could be maintained within those cycles that Von Helmont identified. To clarify that, I've got an idea here that I learned from Buckminster Fuller. Who's familiar with Bucky Fuller? Yeah, sure, not a crew like you. For those who don't know, he was the inventor of the geodesic dome that was the U.S. Pavilion at Expo '67, and a whole lot of other things. And he was the head of a design school at the University of Southern Illinois during the World Design Science Decade, which was the 1960s. And what he did for the World Design Science Decade, he came up with something he called the World Game. And the objective of the World Game is to make the world work for 100% of humanity for all time to come, through comprehensive anticipatory design. And they set about to do an inventory of world resources, human trends and needs. And they looked into what the planet offers, what people need, what people want, how those things have been changing over time. And they came up with 6 great big documents full of fascinating observations about that stuff. But he popularized a little paperback book, 120 pages, called An Operating Manual for Spaceship Earth. You can get the whole thing online now. But what he said in the Operating Manual for Spaceship Earth is if human beings want to be successful, we need to treat our planet like a spaceship. Because we all understand there's only so much provisions on board a spaceship. There's only so much room that we can throw our garbage. We need energy. We've got a great star just the right distance away. And that's it. That's all that's available for Spaceship Earth. And if we recognize those design criteria and build our craft to live within them, then we can cruise the universe for the indefinite future. So space travel is definitely in the human future if we take care of our craft. So I read some of Bucky's stuff and was really thrilled when I heard he was speaking up at the University of Guelph. My organization was in Toronto at the time. So we went up to hear him, and among many things he talked about was something he called pattern integrity. And he illustrated that with a slip knot on a piece of string. And the thing about this knot is that as it slides down the string, matter enters one end and passes out the other. And that carries on until there's absolutely nothing left in the knot that was in it when you first saw it. But it's the same knot. It's got integrity. And the thing about pattern integrity that's relevant to ourselves is that we're pattern integrities. The physical substance of our bodies is changing all the time. Most of it changes every year. In 7 years, there's practically not a trace of any of the substance that you were composed of 7 years previously. But you're the same person. We're spirits, enmeshed in the stuff of the earth. And if you think about the substance that is inside your skin, you identify, this is me. You think about the substance that's been inside your skin from the moment of your conception to the day that you die. That sum total of substance that is you at one point or another is what's called your long body. Every one of us has a long body. Every one of us, every one of our children, every one of our grandchildren, every plant, animal, insect, fungus, everything on the planet draws material into its form and passes it out. So one of the most important things we need to do, one of the first things we should do as a mature species, is get toilet trained. It's totally irresponsible to take things that are dangerous to life and to release them into the biomass from which all life builds its physical form. If we take the ends of that rope and join them together, this is what organic agriculture is about. You take the human waste, the kitchen waste, the garden waste, anything that will decompose, and you compost it down, feed it to the soil life thrives and produces fertilizer as a byproduct. The plants grow from that and we can eat the plants, or animals eat the plants and we can eat the animals. The only thing that's lost is heat. It radiates from our bodies as we metabolize our food. But the sun shines and plants capture heat and replace it. And that sets up a cycle that can go on as long as the sun shines. In fact, that's all that ever supported life until the transportation age. When we learned to grow food in one place, eat it in another, and then run the nutrients down the river or landfill them. And then for the first time, that cycle was broken. And between the poor use of the soil and the running of the nutrients through our bodies and off to waste, we brought our agriculture to the point where it can't be sustained without bringing in nutrients from distant places and manufacturing them with large amounts of energy. And in the 40 or 50 years we may have until the fossil fuel age is run down, we need to reconnect with local soils. So any opportunity there is to produce food locally, to make deals with local farmers, to close those cycles, to get the local provision going in food is really critical. There's more, though, to the collective human organism than just our biological bodies. As a species, we use clothing and buildings and tools and all manner of other things where we take substance from the natural world, incorporate them in our cultural body, and then pass them back into the natural world. And we've got to close the cycles on that as well. There's a program in Europe called Extended Producer Responsibility, where companies are responsible for their products when nobody wants them anymore, including the packaging. And if you're a part of a company like that, you're going to think at the design stage, how can you make your product durable? How can you make it easily repaired? And when it does come back, how can you deal with it with as little problem as possible? Mercedes-Benz is part of this in Europe. And they went from having 20 different plastics in their cars to only 3, and started to assemble them away when they came back to the factory. The people who knew how can pop the dash off, remove the handles, take the whole thing apart basically, and get the different materials into the respective flows for reuse or safe disposal. So